Spiritually, the time period between Pesach and Shavuot is supposed to be the happiest time for the Jewish nation. Pesach, God took us out of Egypt. Shavuot, He gave us the Torah. It's the time there was the Chatan and the Kala, the God and the Kala, were, it's the nicest time. It's those 2 months in the beginning where everybody is cuckoo over the other one. This is the 2 months. So it should have been a very good time for weddings. All the time between Pesach and Shavuot is a very auspicious time for weddings. Unfortunately, we don't have any weddings. So the question is, what happened? What happened in Jewish history that they declared that there's not going to be any weddings during this time? Okay.
And mourning.
And it's a sign of mourning, that's right. So let's start. ידוע סיפור הגמרא, it is known, the story in the Gomorrah, ש12,000 זוגים תלמידים היה לו לרבי עקיבא. Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs of students. 12,000 pairs of students. וכולם מתו בפרק אחד. And they all died at one specific time. Which specific time? בין פסח לעצרת. The specific time was between Pesach and Shavuot. And the reason the Gomorrah says, why did they die? מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. Because they didn't treat each other with respect. ובל"ג בעומר פסקו למות. On Lag Baomer, which is going to be this Wednesday night, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to have nice barbecue. More details to come. In Lag Baomer, they stopped dying. That's why we celebrate Lag Baomer. That's why there's weddings on Lag Baomer, and so on and so forth. Let's look at source number 1 from Tractate Yevamot. Amru, they said, 12,000 זוגים תלמידים היו לו לרבי עקיבא. Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs, 24,000 students. Where did they live? Migvat ad Antfiras. From 2 places. They lived all the way from Gvat until Antfiras. וכולם מתו בפרק אחד. They all died at one period of time. מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. Because they didn't treat each other with respect. Tana, it says, כולם מתו מפסח ועד עצרת. They all passed away from Pesach until Shavuot. Amar Rav Chama bar Abba, Rav Chama bar Abba said, Ve'itei ma Rabbi Chia bar Abin. Some said it wasn't Rav Chama bar Abba, it was another person, Rabbi Chia bar Avin. Says, why did they die? What was the death? Kulam metu mitara. Says they all died a bad death. Mahi, what's this bad death that they died? Amar Rav Nachman Askara. Rav Nachman said it was a disease called Askara. There's a name in English, Difpatira, but I'm not quite sure what it is, but there was a disease called Askara. They all died from Askara. And because of that, because those 24,000 students died, Beimei Asfira. Now, let's just stop for 1 second. It's very, very strange. Think about it. 1,800 years ago, 1,800 years ago, a lot of people died. I agree. In Beitar, you remember Beitar? You know how many people died in Beitar? Much more. Much more. Much more people than this. Do we celebrate it? Do we have any mourning for that? And they
didn't bury them.
We should mourn even though. So it says, the fact that I'm sure they were great people, I'm sure everything it is, but 1,800 years later, we're still mourning for those guys. What's going on over here? We need to understand. There's one mourning time that we had. Tisha B'Av. The destruction of the temple, I understand. Tisha B'Av. You want to say, for all the way from Shvasra B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, it has everything to do with the temple, I understand. But over here, throughout the ages, many people died. Many people died throughout the ages. We don't make such a big deal out of it.
They didn't die for Kiddush Hashem like Beitar. Beitar, they died
Oh,
Kiddush Hashem.
very good.
It's
Even-
greater, and you should. And here they died because they did a sin.
Even better than that. Very good.
Why you have to mourn for it?
What's the big mourning? So, just to understand, just to give us an idea, we're not going to discuss this over here so much, but just the overall idea of what's going on over here. One has to remember Rabbi Akiva was the one who propagated, who brought out the oral Torah. He is the one that brought out the oral Torah, and he taught it to his students. He is the one. Even though, by the way, the halacha is not like Rabbi Akiva, if you read the Mishnayos, usually the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, but it doesn't matter. The halacha is like the students. He taught it to them. He taught the whole thing to this. Now, just to get an idea of what happened, everybody knows that after all the 24,000 people died, the next day Rabbi Akiva stood up again, the next day, and immediately he started teaching again. And one of the students that he taught again was the famous Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, was taught on the second generation. And it says about Rabbi Shimon that the reason Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, how come he immediately found Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Because it says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wanted for years to be accepted among the 24,000 students, but he never passed the tests. He was too, let's call it this, he was too low for them.
Accept him.
They didn't accept. He wasn't enough to be one of Rabbi's before that. He wasn't on a level to be. So you can imagine now what we lost. Yeah, what we lost. We lost pretty much the oral Torah. It's like Aryeh said, it's about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It says that he was the smallest among all the students. That's what Rabbi Shimon. And this is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Zohar. So you can imagine what we lost. So now we understand a little bit at least what's the mourning for. But let's look at the Code of Jewish Law, the bottom of page 3. בימי הספירה מתו תלמידי רבי עקיבא ב-33 יום. In the days of Sphira, the students of Rabbi Akiva died in 33 days. בימים אלו, ולכן נוהגים בימים אלו קצת אבלות. And this is why we have during these days, we are in mourning during specific days. What's the mourning? שאין נושאים נשים, we do not marry women, ואין מסתפרים, we do not take haircuts, ויש חילוקי מנהגים מספר 33 ימים אלו. There's many different opinions. If the first 33, the second 33, it doesn't matter. The easiest way to learn is the first 33 until Lag Baomer. So now comes the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is going to ask a question. The Rebbe says, everything is nice. I like everything you said so far. But the Rebbe says, Lich'ora tamuha. Says there's something which we don't understand over here. Something that needs an explanation. He says, Harei Rabam shel Talmidim elu. It says, who are we talking about? Who's the rabbi of all these students? Rabbi Akiva. It says, the rabbi of all these students is Rabbi Akiva. Hu hatana. It says, Rabbi Akiva, this is the Tana, שהדגיש את גודל הפלאת המעלה של אהבת ישראל. Rabbi Akiva, his main teaching was, Rabbi Akiva אומר, ואהבת לרעך כמוך. It says, Rabbi Akiva says you should love every Jew like yourself. Rabbi Akiva אומר, זה כלל גדול בתורה. It says, this is the most important rule. Everything is an explanation. This is, you want to be a Jew? Love your fellow Jew like yourself. That's it. This is Rabbi Akiva. ואם כן, so the Rebbe asks, I don't understand. We just explained how great his students were, didn't we? Rabbi Shimon was small compared to them. So the Rebbe says, I don't understand. ואם כן, יפלא מאוד שדווקא תלמידיו, it says, I don't understand. How come his students, לא נהגו כבוד זה לזה, disrespected each other? He says, what's going on over here? Did you go to class? Were you sleeping through class? What did you do? הפך העניין של אהבת ישראל. This is exactly the opposite of love your fellow Jew. הוראה עיקרית ויסודית בתורת רבם. And this is what Rabbi Akiva thinks. Now, we have to understand, see, when you go over here now to university, or even now you go to a rabbi, and you say, I'm a student of this rabbi, or I'm a student of this rabbi, it should. Now we need to understand, usually now when you go to a rabbi, you go to school, you go to shul, you go anywhere, your rabbi is not really your rabbi. What do I mean? Rabbi at that time was a master and a student, was mean you were completely nullified. You completely took yourself under the rabbi, which means the way he acted, you acted. Whatever he did, you did. It wasn't like today, oh, I learned by this guy. That doesn't mean nothing that you learned by this guy.
Like the Rebbe.
Even more than that, yeah. It should be with the Rebbe. Like
no,
like it,
the same head,
like it should be with the Rebbe. That's what you're going to see. Like it should be, not like it was with the Rebbe. They were real students.
Like
they were real students, like Yoshua to Moshe. So it says, if they were real students, and Rabbi Akiva is emphasizing, "Ve'ahavta lecha kamocha," what is going on over here? The Rebbe is asking. So let's go. V'nitba'er b'makom acher. So the Rebbe brings in another place the reason what's going on over here. And by the way, this is a mistake we all make, each and every one of us. And the Rebbe explains it's a psychological mistake that we make. We think that when we love somebody, yeah?
You think like us.
Oh, we're going to see. ונתבאר במקום אחר, already explains, שאדרבה. The Rebbe explains, do you know why they didn't respect each other? Because of ואהבת לרעך כמוך. That was the reason why they didn't respect each other. It says, how does that make sense? שאדרבה. דווקא היותם תלמידי רבי עקיבא. It says, it is because they were the students of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva taught, ואהבת לרעך כמוך זה כלל גדול בתורה. That's why they did not respect each other. לכן לא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. It says, that's what it says. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. והביאור. So he says, what does it mean? He says, what did I say? I said words, but it's not understood. So it says, אמרו חכמינו ז"ל, our sages have taught us, שאין דעתוהם של בני אדם שוות. It says, when you have 3 Jews, you have 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Everybody knows that. People don't think the same. People are not the same. וכמובן שכן הוא בנוגע ל-24,000 תלמידי רבי עקיבא. And this is how much more so when it comes to the 24,000 students of רבי עקיבא. That what? שכל אחד ואחד מהם השיג תורת רבי עקיבא לפי דרכו ודעתו. Each one of them understood Rabbi Akiva in a little bit different manner. He understood it in his way, in the way he was thinking. ובשיקול הדעת שלו, in his logic. מסקנתו, שבוודאי שכפי שהשיג הוא, כן הוא הפירוש האמיתי בדברי עקיבא. Now there's also a commandment that you have to understand, really deep understand your Rebbe. So each one was sure that the way he understands it now, he has to fight for it. Because I understood what? I understood Rabbi Akiva. And if you, God forbid, are going to say what Rabbi Akiva didn't say, you're going to teach ואהבת לרעך כמוך different than I understood ואהבת לרעך כמוך. You know what it means? It means you're going against whom? You're going against Rabbi Akiva. It says, what do you do?
What was going wrong there?
Each one understood it differently.
Why? How come? How come?
It's, by the way, how come it's ever? Whenever you learn something, you should know. You're asking it like, so I'll tell it to you, you're a businessman, right? Do you have a partner, right? Yeah. Did you ever think the same? How come? It's the same thing. You're both into money, you're both into business, you're both into how come you don't think the same?
Because we can interpret things differently.
Oh, the same
Torah,
thing.
How you can interpret
exactly the same thing in Torah. In Torah, you don't believe the rabbi. You have to understand the rabbi. Don't believe him. You have to understand him. And each one of them understood him in his niche, in his different way.
But we should get to the same result.
Oh, we're going to come to your point next to the end. We're going to bring that. ולכן כאשר שמע שחברו לומד את דברי רבו באופן שונה. When he heard, excuse me, this guy is teaching Rabbi Akiva not the way I understand it, it means there's something wrong over there. ובלתי נכון לפי דעתו, this is not correct according to my opinion, לא היה יכול לנהוג בו כבוד והערכה. It says, I can't give him respect. You know why I can't give him respect? He goes against the Rebbe. The Rebbe says one thing, and this guy is teaching it wrong. How can I give him respect? No, on the contrary. שהרי הוא לומד את דברי רבו באופן מוטה. He's teaching everybody wrong. I have to teach them the right way. And I cannot tell everybody he's also right. He's not also right. Because you know why? Rabbi Akiva said it according to the way I understand it. That's right. He goes against the Torah. He goes against Rabbi Akiva. That's right. והנהגת כבוד זה לזה מן השפה ולחוץ בלבד. And you know what? Maybe we should be civil. Like people say, you know, we should be nice to each other. He says, that for sure not. מובן שאין זה שייך בתלמידים של רבי עקיבא. For sure they didn't do that. כי בוודאי היו אנשי אמת. They were people of truth. ותוכם כברם. And their inside was just like their outside. ולא יכולים להתנהג באופן של אחד בפה ואחד בלב. They couldn't be politicians, say one thing to the outside and do another things on the inside. The way they understood it, that's the way they were. ונמצא. So over here we comes a strange things. You know why they didn't have honor to each other? שדווקא היותם תלמידי רבי עקיבא. That just because they were the students of רבי עקיבא, היא הסיבה שלא נגעו כבוד לזה. That's why they couldn't respect each other. כל אחד מתלמידי רבי עקיבא היה מסור ונתון בכל נפשו לתורת רבו. Each one gave his life to the Rebbe. He nullified himself. He completely was trying to absorb the Rebbe Rabbi Akiva completely into him. That's what his life work was. Every day he woke up in the morning, he's trying to be Rabbi Akiva. And then when somebody else is not being Rabbi Akiva, it bothers him. עד שלא היה יכול לסבול שמישהו מפרש תורת רבו שלא כהלכה. He couldn't accept that somebody else understands Rabbi Akiva not according to the way he thinks the halacha is. ובפרט כאשר זה הטועה. If it was, he made a mistake in mathematics, he made a mistake in science, that's one thing. But you know where he's making a mistake? In Rabbi Akiva, in Torah. In godliness. בתורת Rabbi Akiva is making the mistake. And you know who is making the mistake? He's a student of Rabbi Akiva. He's expected to actually understand it. ופשיטה שלא יכול לנהוג בו כבוד. It's understood that they couldn't have honor to one another. Now we're going to see the psychological problem over here. Where's the psychological problem? We are on page 6. We're going to do it outside first. Imagine somebody is talking politics, right? And somebody is talking politics against Israel. You heard that this guy over there is talking politics. He's a Jewish also, he's Jewish, he's a liberal, and he loves the Palestinians. It angers you, right? You become crazy a little bit, but you don't lose yourself. You know, people are crazy. You know, what can I do? The guy is there. Imagine though, your son is starting to talk this way. All of a sudden, you're really mad. When somebody else is doing it, you know, you can tolerate it. When your son is doing it, you can't tolerate it. Why? No, it's not in there. He's already married, he's got children, he comes to visit you once a year. Okay. But what does it bother you?
You care about him.
Say it again.
You care about him.
You love him. That's the problem. You love him, you can't take that he's making such a mistake. The other guy you don't love. So he makes a mistake. He's an idiot. Leave him alone. Who cares what he says? But my son thinks this way. I want him to know the right thing to do. What is going on over here? So this is what's going on in the psyche. The more a person we love, the more we disrespect them. The more we disrespect them. Why? The disrespect comes out of love. If we didn't love them, we wouldn't mind so much that he's thinking different. But because he's very close to you and you want him to do the right thing, you don't want him to go off the path, it hurts you. So that It's very, very strange thing. The more you love somebody, the more you're going to disrespect him. He says this is the problem with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says what? Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. They couldn't just let the other student make a mistake. They loved him too much. If it was, some goy says something, let him say. Oh, another one who wasn't a student said something, another sage who wasn't a student of Rabbi Akiva said something, okay. But because we were all students of Rabbi Akiva and we love each other, and Rabbi Akiva says, it is just like my son is saying it, or my brother is saying it, I have to teach him, I have to go. He says, that is what the cause was, that they couldn't tolerate each other.
אז זה לא מסתדר, שבגלל שהם אהבו כל כך אחד את השני, על זה הם נהרגו.
Oh, we're going to discuss that also. Very good. We're going to discuss that also. Excellent question. יתרה מזו, הנהגה זו יש בה תוקף דווקא מצד הוראתו היסודית הנזכרת של רבי עקיבא שאמרת ואהבת לך כמוך. זה כלל גדול בתורה. In other words, their behavior comes psychologically because they loved each other to such a degree. לולא הוראה זו, without this commandment, ייתכן שלא היה אכפת להם כל כך מה שיש תלמיד שאינו משיג תורת רבן לאמיתתה. Maybe they wouldn't have cared that somebody else says whatever somebody else. Let him say whatever he wants. Let it be good for him. But because there was Rabbi Akiva and I love you, I need to tell it to you. When your son messes up, it brings... You go crazy. When somebody else messes up, he messed up. Why? Because you don't love him. You love your own son. You don't want him to go and mess up. אבל מכיוון שרבי עקיבא רבם לימדם על דבר מעלת קיום מצוות ואהבת לך כמוך, since רבי עקיבא taught them, you have to love your fellow Jew as yourself, לא הסתפקו בזה שהם עצמם שקטו ועשו חי בלימוד תורת רבם. It wasn't enough that they understood רבי עקיבא. אלא כל אחד ואחד מהם משתדל להשפיע על כל שבגדר רעך. Each and everyone tried to influence all his friends. ובפרט תלמידי רבו, especially the students of רבי עקיבא, שגם הם ישיגו תורת רבם באותה דרך אמיתית. They're also going to understand Torah the right way. לפי דעתו, according to my understanding. ואלה שלא קיבלו זו, and the other guy is going off the way, he doesn't understand it the right way, לא היה יכול לנהוג כמו, he says, how can I tolerate? You're the student of Rabbi Akiva, and this is the way you teach Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva never said what you said. What are you talking about? ובפרט כבוד כפי הדרוש מתל רבי עקיבא. And this is exactly what Rabbi Akiva is. And now we're going to see, stay on page 6. It's going to be 3 lines in page 6, 8 words in page 6, where it's going to explain everything over here. 3 lines. ציוו חכמים, the sages have said, שיהא אדם מכבד את אשתו יותר מגופו. A person needs to respect his wife more than he respects himself. ואוהבה כגופו, and he should love her like himself. What does that mean? It says this is the thing that the students missed. It says when you and your wife are arguing about something, right? You become mad. Why? You love your wife. And according to your way of understanding the world, your wife is behaving like a woman. In our mind, like a woman. Says, how can you behave this way? So can't you think like a man? You tell her. What's wrong with you? And this is the way we think. So over here, this is what the Torah tells you. You should know it's good to love her. But you know what you're missing? The Torah commands you. You love her, she thinks different than you, she has a different opinion. You have to respect her opinion more
Then you respect yourself.
more than you respect your opinion. In other words, don't come and tell her, because I love you, like one does with his son. I love you, I want to do the right thing, even I don't understand you. And you, by the way, one should do it also with his son. When the son goes off the way, and because, why does the son go off the way? Because he understands whatever he understands differently. One has to respect him. Because if you just come out of the love, if you just come with love, and you're not going to respect him out of love. Loving somebody doesn't bring respect. That's why it over here tells you, I know, God says, I know you're going to have to fight with your wife. And the reason why you're going to fight, because I made you so you think differently. Because you love her, you will want her to do the right thing. So you're going to argue with her and try to He says, no. You have to respect her position more than you respect your position. And this is the mistake Rabbi Akiva's student didn't do. They didn't respect his way of thinking more. They loved him, and that's why they wanted to influence him. The love caused disrespect. Very, very good. But now comes Moshe's question. ולכאורה סיפור זה דורש ביאור. The Rebbe is going to ask you a question, Moshe. That's why I didn't want to get into it. What's the question? אף שמובן שאין זו הנהגה ראויה לתלמידי רבי עקיבא. It says, the Rebbe says, okay, I'll give it to you. The Rabbi Akiva students should have respected each other. At least we understand now what was the problem. שגם מצד דעותיהם השונות לא היה צריך להיות פגיעה ביחסי הכבוד שביניהם. They should still have respected each other. That's true. כי כל אחד ואחד היה לו לתת מקום גם לדעתו של חברו. Just like it says about your wife, that you should respect her way of thinking, so you should have respected their way of thinking. You should have known, not everybody thinks the same. This guy thinks different than me. Yeah.
But because you love him, you don't respect him.
But over here it says, even the respect has to be stronger than the love. Just like the wife. That's what they were missing. It says the respect has to be stronger than the love. לכן הנהגתם ההפכית נחשבת לדבר בלתי רצוי ובפרט לפי החמרתם. So now we understand that what they did was wrong, especially according to the levels of the students of Rabbi Akiva. And here comes Moshe's question. מכל מקום Moshe says, איך ייתכן לומר שבגלל חטא כזה לחוד יענשו בעונש חמור כל כך שכולם מתו? Moshe is asking, I don't understand. For that, you killed 24,000 giants? Like we discussed, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the one who was the weakest one amongst them? Like we said in the beginning of the class? There was no one weaker than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was the weakest one.
Where do we have in the Torah, if you don't respect somebody, you kill him?
Oh, where do we have in the Torah? If you don't respect somebody, the death penalty comes. It says there's no such thing. That's what Moshe's question is. ובפרט, and the Rebbe is going to come ask the question even stronger. ובפרט, שעל פי הנ"ל מובן שאין המדובר ביחס של זלזול חס ושלום. It's not like they were, calling the other monkeys or calling them stupid one to each other. No. ואין צריך לומר עניין של היעדר אהבה חס ושלום, הפך הוראת רבה. For sure they did it with love. אלא היעדר הרגש של כבוד אמיתי. It was, what was the problem? It says, I can't, you see it, especially you can see it in business. If the business is important to the two sides, you can see, you become angry on the other guy. Because he wants to take the business into a direction where you don't want to take it. It makes you, it says, how dare you? How dare you make the business lose? It's exactly that mentality. Yeah? And that causes a sense of you're going to bring the whole business down because of you. That's the idea. And this is what happened with them. But it says, nevertheless, yeah, they didn't do it out of disrespect. They didn't call each other names. They didn't this. They just inside said, you know what? You missed the whole point. You missed the whole point of Rabbi Akiva. And they couldn't give each other respect. Because each one knew that Rabbi Akiva's direction was a little bit different. And the Rebbe continues to ask. On page 7 in the bottom, דבר פשוט הוא שכל תלמידים אלו בריבוי גדול של 24,000 לא באו ונעשו תלמידיו ביום אחד. It didn't happen one day, that he got 24,000 in one day. Slowly. אלא במשך כמה וכמה שנים. It happened throughout many years. והיינו כאשר התחיל רבי עקיבא ללמוד עם תלמידים, ונתפרסמו שמו ותורתו בעולם, התחילו לנעור אליו תלמידים. It says slowly the students came to him. ובמשך הזמן הלך וגדל מספרם. And slowly it became more and more. עד שהיו לו 24,000 תלמידים. Until at the top, he had 24,000. וכמו כן מובן שאופן התגתם של כל התלמידים לא ישנו בת אחת למצב שלא נהוג כבר לזה. And they didn't start disrespecting each other immediately. It was the stages. כי אם מדרגה לדרגה, it happened one stage after another stage. ותמוה ביותר, so he says, I don't understand. The guys who didn't this is a matter of like 14 years or 15 years, whatever it took. Why the guys who didn't disrespect in the first year should have died in the first year? Why did they all are dying at one time?
By their timing.
Exactly. Each one should die in its own time. ותמוה ביותר, מדוע נענשו כולם בפרק אחד? Why they were all punished at one time? הרי דוחק הכי גדול לומר שבתקופה קצרה זו של פרק אחד, you want to tell me they're all starting disrespected each other between Pesach and Shavuot on that year, and previous year they had great respect for each other? It doesn't make sense. נתמלאה סעתם של כל ה-24,000 תלמידים בבת אחת, you want to say this is it? God couldn't take it anymore? It doesn't make sense. ועל כן צריך לומר שבפרק זמן זה אירע דבר מיוחד שבגללו כולם מתו בפרק זה. So the Rebbe says, cannot say that. Something happened during this time that caused it. Something special happened. So he says, what happened? What happened between this Pesach and Shavuot that caused it to happen? So the Rebbe looks at another story. Now, introduction to the other story. The other story goes like this. Today we have a calendar. You want to know when Rosh Hashanah is, you don't know Yom Kippur is, you go to the calendar, and it's written down for the next 200, 300 years. The calendar tells you. At that time we're talking about, it was done by the moon. You had witnesses who saw the moon, they will come to Yerushalayim. Even after the destruction of the temple, the time of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, time of Rabbi Akiva, even at that time, it was still done by the moon. So this is the story. We're going to read a story about what happened in the time of the Gomorrah. Let's look inside. Page 8. ויובן זה על פי מה שמצינו עוד סיפור ברז"ל. We find another story in the stories of רז"ל. שבו מובן לשון זה. And in that story it also says the same not understood thing. What does it say? כולם מתו בפרק אחד. All these guys died in the same time. So what happened? So let's look. This is from the Yerushalmi Talmud. So it says, מעשה ב-24 קריאות של בית ריבי, שנכנסו לעבר שנה בלוד. So let me give you a background of what's going on over here. There were 24 caravans, 24 wagons from Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Now, after Yerushalayim was destroyed, right, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, most of the Jews moved to the Galilee. So most of the sages, most of the yeshivas were in the Galilee.
No?
Yeah, in the Galilee. Tzipori, I don't know if Tzipori is in the Galilee, but in the Galilee, most of the yeshivas, most of the sages lived in the Galilee. There was hardly anyone in Yehuda. Everyone went to the Galilee. And usually the Ibur, the Sanhedrin, was by Yerushalayim. But the people did not live in Yerushalayim at that time because Yerushalayim was destroyed. There was no food or nothing. But they kept the Sanhedrin there because it was...
the Sanhedrin was existing.
It wasn't in Arabite, but it was whatever. They had the Sanhedrin in over there. So the story was like this, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi heard that in Lud, that was in Yehuda, Lud was in Yehuda, they're going to do Ibur Chodesh. They're going to... לעבר את השנה, סליחה, אתה צודק, לעבר את השנה, they're making a decision if to make it a leap year or not to make it a leap year. So he decided, you know what, usually it's done in Yehuda throughout the years. We want to participate also. So it says, instead of us making Ibur HaChodesh, Ibur Deshana over here with the sages, let's send the sages of us. There won't be machloket. There won't be disagreement. We're going to send our sages to the sages in Lud. And then we're going to participate in everybody together. That was the idea. Now the people in Lud says, you come over, you have to look at the politics of what happened. Excuse me, we're doing good without you guys. All of it. We don't have many people over here. All of a sudden, all of the Galilee is coming with all of the sages. 24 caravans of sages are coming into town. And what? And you guys, with your sages, you come and taking over. What? We're not good enough. We're not good enough to make it a leap year. We need you guys. That was the attitude of the people in Lud. And what happened because of that attitude? Nichnasa bahem ayn ra. They put the evil eye on them. We had a class about the evil eye. You remember, like almost a year ago. Umetu kulam beperek echad. And all these sages, the 24 caravans, all died at one period of time. Because, it says, let's just explain a little bit about the evil eye. What is this evil eye? The evil eye goes like this. If everything goes good by a person, he's happy with everything that he has, and another person sees that he's happy, is marrying one son, marrying another son, and he's making a big hoopla and going around, I have the best son, I have the best daughter, I have the best... Somebody is jealous. And when somebody is jealous, the angel of that somebody goes up to heaven and he asks God, excuse me, is this guy that is so happy about his son, he's so happy about his daughter, is he better than me? And God, every time it happens, checks to see.
Yeah,
He checks to see if you're better than him. And if you're not better than him, what's going to happen? Something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen to make sure. So every time there's a big celebration by somebody, people try to keep it on the low. Don't make too much celebration, because I don't want the other person to come. His angel is going to come to God and say to God, why does he deserve it and why not me? Why does he's rich and not me? Why does his business deal goes? Why is his business succeeding and not my business? All these things. So you ask you, how much money you make? Say, Baruch Hashem, everything is good. Yeah, you don't say I became a multi-billionaire. You know, look at my new Ferrari, look at my new Lamborghini, look at the house I bought. No, you don't do that, because that causes the evil eye. Because then the guy says, hey, I'm as righteous as you are. And then goes up to God, and God looks at the situation. Is he? Does he deserve it? And you don't want those trials to come. That's the idea. So, מאותו שעה, עקרו מיהודה וקבעוה בגליל. It says, from that time, pretty much, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the next year, did not say 24 caravans, because all these sages died. So he says, from now on, we're not going to send any more sages, and since we are the main sages over here in the Galilee, we're going to do Ibur Hashana only over here, in the Galilee. בעיון מעקר אף אן סימנה, אמר לו רבי סימון, it says, when they come to take everything, even Rosh Chodesh, they were going to take away, not just Ibur de Shana, not just a leap year, even, they're going to take everything. So Rabbi Simon said, אין אנו מחניכים ביהודה אפילו זכר. It says, we can't take everything from them. Let's at least leave some respect to Yehuda, because Yerushalayim is in Yehuda. Nevertheless, we have to give something there. We can't take their everything. Okay, everything we'll take, but at least Rosh Chodesh we'll give them, because we can't take it away. That's the story. Over here, look.
They gave him the Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah. Over here, look at the story. They all died in one perek. And what's the strange part?
24.
It's 24. Again, the number 24 comes. Let's see. והנה במאמר חז"ל זו נתפרשה הסיבה למיתתם. It says why. So the Gomorrah over there explains why did they die. It says שמפני שנתאספו הרבה תלמידים 24 קרונות. It says because there were so many students, 24 caravans. לכן נכנסה בהם עין רעה. That's why the evil eye went into them. So we see we need a combination. There needs to be a combination. It's not one cause. There need to be also the number 24. If there were 23, that wouldn't have happened. You know, it's like somebody who, God forbid, has diabetes. Yeah? And then he gets the corona. Yeah? If he didn't have diabetes, corona is no problem. But now this guy has diabetes and he's fat and he's overweight and this. all together comes together and Corona can be a disaster. Yeah? But just one on his own, like Moshe said, just the fact that they disrespected each other wasn't a good enough reason. But it came together with what? With this evil eye of 24. When you get to that number of 24, there's a problem. We don't know why. We don't know why. It's Kabbalistic idea. It's gvurot. If you don't know that in Kabbalah, Kabbalah says that the number 24 is gvura. It's might. It's din. It's judgment. God judges the whole thing all over again. ויש לומר שמזה נלמד בענייננו שנאמר באותו הלשון כולם מתו בפרק אחד. It says that's why again they all died at one time. שסיבת מיתת תלמידי רבי עקיבא, that the reason the students of רבי עקיבא died בפרק אחד in one time, היינו מפני שבפרק זה הגיע מספרם ל-24,000. It says because there were yet more and more students. Once it hit 24,000 together with the disrespect, it was enough reason. Just the 24,000 wouldn't be enough.
That's
just
why
the
they didn't
disrespect.
die one by one.
Oh, that's why they didn't die one by one. That's why they waited for the number. It waited for the number 24,000. ובזה גופה במספר של 24 הקשור עם מידת הדין. The number 24 has to do with the attribute of din. Justice. כמובן ממה שכתוב בזוהר, how do we know this? We know it from the זוהר, על דבר כ"ד בתי דינים. It says there are 24 courts of justice. Why 24? Because justice has to do with number 24. וכסיפור הנ"ל בירושלמי, just like we learn in the story in ירושלמי, that there were 24 caravans. שזה גרם שתכנס בהם רעה עד שכולם מתו. In other words, the עין רעה wouldn't have helped if it was only 23.
Right.
But the 23, they would have put Ain Hara, but it wouldn't have kicked in. Because it was 24 and the Ain Hara, now it kicked in.
יש עוד עניין, שאם אני לא טועה, אם אני לא מערבב, שמעתי על הדבר הזה. זה גם בגלל שנכנסו לאוהל זוגות, היה עניין כזה, אתה מכיר משהו כזה? שלא נהגו כבוד זה בזה, נכנסו באוהל זוגות. נו. בגלל זה גם כותבים
12,000 זוגות.
למה? כי אני לא זוכר מאיזה, מתי זה היה?
מדבר על חטא של המואבים, אני חושב, שהמואבים החטיאו אותנו.
נכנסו לאוהל זוגות כנגד 12,000
מואביות של המואבים. יכול להיות אני לא מכיר את זה.
אני לא זוכר.
אבל זה נשמע לי גם כן, כי זה 24,000, גם כן מתו אז במגפה 24,000.
אני זוכר זה שהם הרגו שמעון ולוי 24,000.
אבל יכול להיות שזה גם היה שם קשור.
התלמידים הם גלגול של...
יכול להיות. שזה גרם שתכנס בהם עין הרע עד שכולם מתו. This caused that the evil eye will come to them until they all died. ואין זה סתירה למפורש בבבלי שמתו מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. We're not saying that they respected each other. Obviously, they didn't respect each other. The הא והא גרם מצטרף. It's both of them together that happened. זה שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה, the fact that they didn't respect each other, מצד עצמו אינו חטא גדול כל כך, שיענשו עבורו לבד בעונש מיתה. It's bad, but it's not enough to kill 24,000. אלא מפני שבפרק זה נכנסה בהם עין הרע, נענשו אז גם על חטא קל זה שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. It was because it was a combination with the number 24. And he's going to give us another example for this. We have another example for this in halacha. The Rebbe says, ואולי יש לומר שזהו הדרך שמצינו שבאינא דריתחא מענישים גם על היעדר הרדיפה אחר קיום מצוות. It says like this. Is there a commandment to wear tzitzit? There's no commandment, right? What is the commandment? The commandment says that if you wear a garment with four, we are on page 10, paragraph 3. If we wear a garment with 4 corners, then you have to put a tzitzis. If you don't wear a garment of 4 corners, you don't have to wear a tzitzis. Yeah? That's what it says. But it says, we're going to see it's a problem. Why is it a problem? שבאינא דריתחא, when God is mad, מענישים גם על היעדר רדיפה אחרי קיום מצווה. God is going to punish also on the fact that even though it's not a mitzvah, I'm going to punish you. Once I'm in a mood of punishing, I'm going to punish for everything I can. In other words, I'm not going to punish you for not wearing a tzitzit. I'm not going to punish you. There's no punishment. But if you sinned, I'm going to punish you for sinning, and I'm going to punish you. Oh, you thought you don't need the tzitzit to remember the commandments. That's why you sinned. So I'm going to punish you because you're so haughty. You think you don't need reminders. So I'm going to punish you for you thinking you don't need reminders. Also on that. Yeah, but over here it says, when it comes to tzitzis, by the way, tzitzis is the only one. Tzitzis is only on tzitzis. That's what it says. Only tzitzis. אף שאין אדם מחויב לקנות טלית כדי להטיל בזה, even though you don't have a responsibility, because it says, what's the idea of tzitzis? The idea of tzitzis is to remind you to do the commandments. You thought, I don't need a reminder, I'm good enough. You're good enough, so I'm going to punish you for... That's the idea. ועוד כיוצא בזה, it says similar to this. והנה סיפור זה אודות תלמידי רבי עקיבא, שמתו מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. This story about the student of Rabbi Akiva, they did not have honor to one another, הוא חלק בתורה. It says, they